You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 48 on the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. I'm your host, Crispy, also known as Crispy Wonton or simply just Anton. And on today's episode, the one and only Kmusiceveryday KME joins the show for the Reve Festival 2022 Feel My Rhythm album discussion by Red Velvet. Yes, the long-awaited album discussion is here. We had some life events that, kind of pushed back our date to, go over the music, go over the music video, go over everything Red Velvet. And honestly, it turned out kind of for the best. It gave Cammy and myself some time to live with the album for a few weeks, to really digest the music, the themes, the composition, the production, the visuals, and the content that Red Velvet also released in companion with the promotions. And it really informed our experiences. And I think it turned into a really great encapsulation of how we internalize music, internalize Red Velvet's music specifically. I came away from the talk with a far deeper appreciation for the group than I think I've ever had, knowing the group. I think this is probably the closest connection I've had to not just their music, but the characterization, the story, the whimsical nature, as well as the quirky, dark undertones of everything Red Velvet. As well as just the members themselves and their music ability, how it's grown and changed and evolved to this point. And I couldn't have thought about anyone else to do it with aside from Kmusiceveryday, KME. So shout out to the homie, because he absolutely kills it. And we really pull a lot of things from each other. A really great back and forth, and a pretty special conversation coming up for you guys. So hang tight. We go an hour to talk about the entire album, our thoughts, our feelings, a little bit of reaction from the main show, and let's just get into it. Coming up, my chat with Kmusiceveryday on the Reve Festival 2022 Feel My Rhythm by Red Velvet on the Soju Sessions. Joining Soju Sessions and making his return to the show, the Red Velvet King, the man who is full of joy, who has so much knowledge and so much in-depth experience with this lovely, amazing group. The one and only Kmusiceveryday KME. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hello. Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes. No, it's I had this one circled on the calendar for a long time. Red Velvet is still, I think, transitioning into their triumphant return. I think Queendom was a nice palette refresher to get everyone reacquainted with Red Velvet. But for me, knowing that another comeback was imminent, I penciled it and I circled like I have to have Cammy on here. I have to talk about whatever release it is with him. And so glad and happy to have you on the show to really dive deep into this amazing group, wonderful group. I'm slowly pulling out my heartstrings that I think I really do want to put them at one, but I just can't commit. But I probably will eventually get there. All thanks to you. But yes, Red Velvet has come back with a brand new album. The Reve Festival 2022 Feel My Rhythm, released March 21st, 2022, so just a few weeks ago. We got to sit with this album, we get to really digest and live with it for a couple of weeks. And for me, this has been a really unique experience, kind of being able to, have it on in the background, experience it in different settings, and really dive in with a little bit extra time, right? And I want to get your impressions on it first, Cammy. So Feel My Rhythm is the title track. What were your first impressions of the song, the music video, and how did it all hit you with Red Velvet doing something a little bit different, something a little bit off the norm.
Right, right. Yeah, when leading up to it, I was kind of I didn't want to get too hyped for it, so I was kind of and I was busy with life stuff at the time, so I was just kind of checking out trailers and or the teasers or whatever, and then the images. I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't trying to like delve too much into them. I was like, I don't want to get too hyped. Um, but the song came out at night, and I was like, I work at night, so it came out when like near the end of my shift, and oh man, when I put that music video on, and the strings start flowing, and I was just like, okay, this was in the teaser. Where is this gonna hit? And then once that beat drops, oh my god, I just kind of had the instant like stink face, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know, I love it. It just how they integrated that that rock sample, or I guess recreation into it. It's so smooth, and I think the crew was talking about it too, and specifically Warren on the main show, is that it's very easy for that to be kind of corny or lame, or it's very easy for that to not work when you use a classical sample like that. But it just works so beautifully. When the chorus hits as well, that's the other side. Like actually, the pre-chorus with in the first part with Joy and Wendy, I believe. Um, oh, just like the harmony in her voice and all that. And then when that chorus hits, it's just like a beautiful mesh of all like the old sound, the new sound, and it's just the even the choreo is even hitting on each and every kind of beat and rhythm. So I love it. I can easily say now that it's definitely top five RV title tracks for me. So but yeah, I loved it. I loved it at first listen, and it was just kind of like I just kind of replayed it for that whole morning, just over and over and over. So
Yeah, no, I got chills kind of the way that you described it, right? A lot of different elements hitting in that immediate input of just like sensory experiences, right? As far as the theming, so the motifs. For me, I got a lot of Victorian era type of styling as well as the setting, playing into a lot of the fantasy elements. We'll get into it a little bit later. They talk about Kwangya a lot on the main show. I get that that's kind of the underlying SM universe thing to jump to, but for me, I see it as a lot of playfulness within the fantasy whimsical world that they've set up as mature Red Velvet, kind of starting from Psycho, right? And there is a familiar bounce with their music, the bass wobbles, the instruments. But again, I think it all rests on the classical sample. And it's not this sample that is so heavy throughout the entirety of the song where that's kind of the backbone of the song. It's more of a, pardon the pun, a thread at different parts of the song to emphasize and give extra oomph, right, to different parts. Especially like you said, the pre-chorus, my favorite part. I have a new appreciation for Joy in a number of ways. She was always a fantastic performer, great visuals, amazing smile, but the way she captured that moment where the song is a little off-putting to begin with, it's dark, it's strange, but then her part kind of lights up in a very center garden fountain setting, and then she herself glows with her smile, and it just pairs really well with the song. And that little bit of bounce. If you've listened to the song at any point in the past few weeks, you can immediately hear it and see it in your head. At least I can right now, and I can't get that imagery out of my head. I wanted to kind of ask you about the different sound effects throughout the song. So there was a bit of a rewind effect, a record scratch effect, and the glitchiness. How do you feel like those were incorporated? And now that you've heard it several hundred times, I imagine, do you feel like Red Velvet has done this sound the best to their character that you've heard so far in recent memory?
oh yes, absolutely. I think that goes all the way back to like Zimzalabim, and that initially had like that one goes kind of over the top with all the weird kind of clangy, glitchy kind of noises, and this one incorporates that those elements in there as well, but Yeah, like you were saying, it just fits in there so smoothly. Like throughout the track, especially in the beginning, you can hear it. There's like a, it's kind of like, I don't know, like a cowbell or something like that. That's kind of the little ding 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 ding, and then but it has this on like DJ mixers. There's an effect called the crush, and it kind of makes like a glitchy, kind of distorted electronic sound. It sounds like that sample has been kind of run through that an effect like that, and it's kind of running throughout, and it just like, I don't know, if you hear it by itself, you were like, oh, that's kind of a weird sound, but when it fits into the overall um kind of uh I guess orchestration of the whole thing, it fits so perfectly. And then like you're saying, near the end, I know they highlighted this on the main show as well. That part with Joy, the little breakdown before the key change, there's like um I love that part. It's like I really wish though that that little break in between because it kind of switches up to a little bit of a poppy hip hop R&B type beat for like maybe like half a beat or so, or maybe like 4 beats. Um and it's like, I just wish it went on for maybe a little bit longer until it does that rewind and then it goes up to the next key. And then it has, of course, Joy shining there as well again. But yeah, I really liked it. Like, and then there's even throughout the whole song, you can hear, like you were saying, it's not a classical samples, not like a backbone, or they don't really use it as a crutch throughout the thing. But there's elements of it, whether it's interpolated into the chorus sound, or there's like little bits of it that's not, like little pieces of the chords and all that. I was actually just watching last night the React to the K, like, they do like the jazz and classical musicians react to like K-pop videos. So this was like, I was like, okay, this is like a perfect song for them to actually go into. And yeah, they actually they go into all the, like, they know way more about like the musicianship of all that stuff and the actual names. But they kind of pointed out that as well, whereas like there's little bits of the main piece of that air on the G string or whatever from Bach, um kind of sampled throughout, or just like they play like bits of the arrangement but like cut out some pieces and it works perfectly. So I really love the sound of this one. That's why and I really love Warren's description of Baroque trap, because I think that's like absolutely perfect. That's kind of and that's what we were talking about earlier, or you were talking about it kind of being psycho esque, and that was my kind of expectation when I seen the teasers and the pictures and all that stuff. Um, and if I think it very much is like kind of like a next step of from Psycho still has a little bit of a um I don't know, like a little bit of light-hearted poppiness, but with just kind of a dark visual. This one is kind of um, full, goes full poppy, but full. I don't know. It just marries those two, the darkness and the light, like very perfect. Like even with the visuals and all that stuff. So, yeah, I really love the sound of this one. It's really great.
I think this plays into the strength of the evolution of Red Velvet, right? They did mention it on the show that this is a song that the strength is the fact that it's Red Velvet. I'd even go one step further. I think the only group that could do a song like this is Red Velvet.
Oh, 100%.
So in that sense, I feel like it's so incredibly unique. It takes a lot of risk and it does a lot of things so specific to only this collection of musicians, whether that's Silgi and Wendy kind of establishing the strength with their voice. And then Joy coming in with a lot of the playfulness with Yeri. And then, say what you will about Irene, but I think they have found a way to play her raps with her singing in a very smooth way where it blends into the rest of the song, right? And for me, I think we've come to an inflection point with Red Velvet, where I think they've been very known for a red or velvet concept, musically, thematically, visually, right? And they're moving into an element where now it's completely blended, where you don't know the line, whether it's a Velvet song with R&B inspiration or a Red song, which is this exaggerated hyper K-pop flourishes, right? I think there's a lot of both of those elements in the recent music. most prominently here with Feel My Rhythm. I think for me, it's like I kind of set myself up to think about, oh, maybe it's going to be something like Psycho, but then they do a lot of interesting switch ups and changes within the song that actually kind of feels a lot like Zimzalabim, like you mentioned, especially with the different effects. And then visually, conceptually, it's this whole fantasy world that they've created that the crew went into enormous detail about on the main show. So let's kind of move into kind of the music video itself, right? I will preface, I am not the lore person in any sense, even if I love the group. But I can appreciate and love to interpret art as it is, right? As it's presented. And within this music video, it does open with shots of an oil painting, where they're individually set in their own different domains. And you're seeing the different blends of how they cross and intertwine. For me, I see a very clear delineation between Irene, Sulgi, and Wendy kind of being on the dark side of things, whether that's on the open sea, underwater, or in Sulgi's bird world. Whatever she represents, she's in a much darker setting, with Yeri and Joy kind of being in the brighter blossoming flower in the garden. And I feel like both those contrasts do a really nice job to kind of accentuate this idea of both red and velvet. What were your takeaways from the music video, and how did you feel about the crew going full conspiracy theory detective on the show? I loved it, but it was to the point where it's like, I need to take notes. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know how to follow, but I'm going to take notes somehow.
Right. I think the really cool thing I loved about the music video is how it does incorporate those like oil paintings and all that stuff. There's a really cool Twitter account. I think it's called RV Art Parallels. And they were doing this before even this video, this song came out, where they would take like, you know, pictures of Red Velvet and then like compare them to like classical art. And so like literally do that in this music video, and I thought that was really cool because they were posting all the pictures of like, oh, this is this painting from this. There were a lot of them were like either Victorian era or like Renaissance era paintings and all that stuff. So that's the first thing I really noticed. I love that in the beginning, and how that, and people noticed that throughout the teasers too in the beginning. So just to see them incorporate that into the music video was dope. As far as the lore, I'm the same way. I really just I'll listen to like, you know, lore stuff and all that, but I don't know. I don't have time or like the bandwidth to fully comprehend and look for all the little things. But yeah, I can definitely see that's very clear. Like, you know, like you said, some of the members are in the dark area, and then Joy and Yeri kind of represent the light, and there's like this kind of like a balancing force between them. I was watching the behind the scenes of the music video as well that they have on their YouTube channel, and Joy specifically says that like each member has a role to kind of play in the music video, and her role was actually, well, exactly like you said, like, oh, to bring about the light. So that's why she's kind of like in that flower and it's kind of blooming. And then when she pops the little, like the whatever, the crazy, I don't know what do they call it, like the metal baby or something like that.
Oh yeah,
on the main show,
yeah, the metal baby thing, that's quite frightening.
Being the strawberry, yeah. So like you can see the sword that it brings down, and there's like a little bubble, and she pops it, and that's when the light kind of, and then they're dressed in those kind of 2000s esque outfits and the dance and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a crazy music video. Like those creepy bird things. Like there's like a little like big bird popping out at one point. I don't know. Like, and that's all. That's the thing with like classical stuff. When you go into old museums or like stuff, you see stuff like that. Art's like classical old art it looks cool, but also there's always like a creepy kind of like, I don't know. There's a creepy element that you see it. You just kind of weirds you out. So that's how I feel like that's like very much how this music video is, very much captures that feeling where it's like, wow, this is very beautiful to look at. Also, it's kind of giving me the creeps. It's also weird, and I don't know what to make of it. But there's definitely something going on. I don't know what the whole. I'm very removed from all the Kwangia stuff. Um, so I don't know, but there is definitely something going on with Zoe because she's very weird in this music video. She's kind of the queen. If you notice too, like um in the scene with Irene, and she's like kind of giving the strawberries like as an offering or whatever. And then something comes down, like a sword comes down to pick the strawberry, and that's from Irene. And then there's a clip later of Solgi, and she has the strawberry and the sword. Um, what's it called? And she's eating it. So I can only imagine she's supposed to be whatever that, I don't know, that big metal baby thing is that got the strawberry from Irene, whatever that represents. I know Alice had a whole like amazing um interpretation of I forget what it was called, like the demiurge or something like that. I definitely go recommend like hearing or I don't know if she posted it, like her actual essay, how Warren asked them to make essays and stuff like that. But all their interpretations, especially Alice, was like really cool. Um, but yeah, I really liked it. It's fun. It's fun to look at. But like I said, I'm there for whatever it is, and I just like the visuals and the music mostly. So
Yeah, no, I will link the Alice's essay in the description because she spent an incredible amount of time on it, and she really went in depth and covered the history of literature and fantastical storytelling. So, Alice, you're amazing. You're a wonderful person. Thank you for doing that. Yes, everyone, it'll be in the description. As far as like the imagery, for me, because I'm only looking at it on the perspective of Red Velvet. And kind of the prism of what they've experienced throughout their own music. I see a lot of callbacks, whether it has to do with the most recent history with Psycho, but also elements of Queendom. I think kind of interdimensional play is definitely referenced there, and also Fruit. Fruit is just a big part of Red Velvet's history. I mean, you go Red Flavor, we go Ice Cream Cake. Did Rookie have any? No, I don't think. Power Up. There. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes. Oh God, how could I forget? Yes, Fruit is definitely a big part of Red Velvet and their history and their storytelling, but it's never been explicitly explained, which for me I love because then it opens up to interpretation, and it's really how you see the characters, the members change and evolve throughout the course of their musical history, right? And what they decide to show you, right, in the music videos. So I don't know, man. I love it as an art piece. For me, that's where I land with Red Velvet. If it happens to connect with Kwangya, cool, amazing, awesome. I like Aespa just fine. Karina, Winter, Giselle, Ning Ning, throw them all in there. And then if Boa happens to pop up in something, why not? Just get all the generations of
right
of SM ladies in this. But I think ultimately there's just an amazing attention to detail with the layers of art interpretation in this music video, where you can take it at face value, or you can take it into the layers of historical references, or one step further into Kwangya, which it's all open for whoever wants it, which is amazing. One technical aspect about the music video that I think really ties it all together is the editing is pretty spectacular. In a music video like this, it can be very easy to get bogged down with thousands of shots and you get fractions of seconds of each of them, and then you don't know where things are. Your sense of geography within a song and music video. For this, yes, there are a lot of shots. Yes, there's a lot of intercutting, but they all seemingly make sense and they all come together at very nice moments, whether it's in group shots or even like very memorable shots, like the pupil, like the eye at the kind of near the end. And I feel like that is a really nice way to pinpoint where you are as a viewer within the visual component paired with the amazing song. So yeah, shout out to the whole production on this one. Well, I'll give you the start for this last one. Who is your favorite member of this music video, sir? And what was your highlight for that person?
Oh, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but definitely Joy the last couple years has definitely been like I guess bias record. I've always been totally 100% Irene. But there's something about Joy's personality and her brightness and her embodiment of her name Joy. Just her smile and her voice just lightens you up. And whenever she comes out, like in the pre-chorus in the first half of the song, and then like any other time, she's kind of giving these kind of in previous. It's easier for her to get lost into the song, especially with you know Solgi and Wendy, taking care of a lot of the heavy vocal lifting. And Irene and Yeri kind of do like the interstitial rapping esque parts, and then Joy kind of just does like she'll be there in little parts and stuff. But I feel like in the last few years they've definitely put her a little bit more out front, which I love. And this one because she has such a very nice melodic tone, and I don't know. Whenever I hear it, it just like it just gives you goosebumps and it makes you feel good. So definitely Joy. I would say Joy 100%. Irene definitely looked very beautiful in this one. And then Wendy as well. Wendy as well had like really great vocals. And there's also they give us a lot of like behind the scenes stuff for this comeback. On their YouTube channel, they have like a behind the scenes of them actually recording the song, and it's very cool to watch. I definitely recommend it. It's like 20 minutes long, and it's about them each coming in and recording their parts. But Wendy's is very in-depth, and she's very they all do this, but she very does it a lot on her recording sessions where she's kind of like, oh, I should say it. How about I say it like a little bit this way, or I don't know, this part sounds, the way I'm singing it sounds a little bit like childish or cringy. Like, should I make it more playful or more mature or whatever? Like, what like you can. It's really cool to see them. What's it called? Go into like how they put their own stamp on how the music is recorded and all that stuff. So I definitely recommend that. But that was also, so I'd say Joy definitely overall, and Wendy's vocals definitely 100%.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible process just for them to show us, right? The kind of the collaboration of the members specifically, because oftentimes, it does feel like K-pop is separated from the people actually singing it. So with this, I think, again, to echo everything you said, going behind the scenes and really seeing the input of the members kind of creates a much more special effect with how the song comes together, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. My favorite member, it's no secret, is Solgi, for a number of reasons, vocally, dancing, visually in a lot of ways. It's not part of the storytelling that is my favorite outfit, but it's the tie-dye, crop top, blue jeans.
Oh, yeah.
Need I say Amazing. More? Just go watch the music video, please, because if I try to talk about it, I will just faint, and we have to finish this somehow. All right. We're going to move on now to an album discussion. We're going to go track by track to see how we feel about the flow, about how each song plays into one another. So track number 2 off of the album is Rainbow Halo. Overall, I love the flow of the album. But Kami, let me start with you. How do you feel about Rainbow Halo being the number 2 track, the follow-up to Feel My Rhythm? And how do you feel like plays into this version of Red blended with Velvet?
For Rainbow Halo, I think it's actually a perfect second track because it's a very standard Red Velvet B-side type of sound. Like you said, it kind of mixed the blend of Red and Velvet concepts. It's probably my least favorite on the album. Just because, like I said, it's not bad or anything like that. It's just that it's very what you would expect from a Red Velvet B-side, which to me the Red Velvet B-sides are exactly why I love this group. Not only do they have amazing title tracks, but usually every album there's not a bad song on there, depending on who you speak to. But for me as a full red-blooded Red Velvet fan, like there's never really a bad song. There's songs that I like less than others, but yeah, overall I like this one. It has a kind of like a catchy chorus, but it's to me it's very reminiscent, but it's a nice kind of take you down to a moderate level after the hypeness of Feel My Rhythm, and then lead you into the rest of the album for me.
Yeah, and I think you put it best. It's a transitional song. Again, probably not my favorite as well, but I think there are a lot of great redeeming qualities for this to be part of the larger picture, the play, the stage performance that kind of this album evokes, right? Everything from the kind of the opener of the album with Feel My Rhythm. Anita said it feels like a stage performance. So Rainbow Halo is your wind down, let's get into the rest of the show. Let's get into the meat of the story. And for me, I really like the saxophone elements of the song and the fact that in the first verse, all 5 members got a part. And I feel like that is a nice setup for the rest of the album, that they want to show cohesion, that every member is going to be represented equally in a lot of ways, right? I think there is a nice bit of transition to all 5 members harmonizing and singing the chorus as well. But again, it's a very lower energy level relative to track 1, Feel My Rhythm, right? And again, it's very much of that transition feel to it. I think the other musical element that stood out to me is kind of the synths. It's kind of weird to say that, retro has been like so popular over the past 3 years when this is so familiar with Red Velvet. They've been doing this for 6 years. Right, and it's just like, yeah, they've been doing it for 6 years. They're still doing it, and they're still doing it amazingly. It's just embedded into how they produce music and how they match their vocals with the production. Yeah, no. Any last thoughts on Rainbow Halo?
No, I think that's pretty much all it's straightforward on that one.
Yeah, no worries, man. All right, track number 3. Oh, this one, Beg For Me. This one is gritty. It's grimy. It's showing you. I'm just gonna say it's empowering female sexuality in a beautiful way, and it's a beautiful thing. Let's just be real about it. We're all adults here, and they are young women. They are more than that. They are in their mid-20s to late 20s. They've lived life, and to me, it's okay for a song to kind of go in that step of showcasing and celebrating elements of what it means to be an adult. And I think this song does a nice job of treading that line of not being this completely raunchy track, not calling out any artists or musicians or people who may enjoy that kind of stuff. But I feel like Red Velvet really hit a nice spot where musically, it sounds, very good vibes, kind of like they say in the chorus, with trap R&B kind of blended into kind of their characteristic flourishes. But also those lyrics, man, they let you know that they're adults, which I love. And it's a great table setter for kind of the theming of what it means to mature into that phase in your life. Kami, how did this song hit you?
Oh, this is definitely one of my favorites. Right off the bat, listening to it last night too, I was kind of noticing. I had it full blast on my headphones, and it was just the bass kind of runs through like very, you say grimy and kind of like, but it also smooth. One of my highlights, I think, is definitely the end, near the end of the track when Wendy and I think it's Joy at the end too, have a very like low, sexy type rap at the end. But yeah, I love this. I love the sound. I love the vibe, and like you said, the kind of nature of the lyrics. That kind of you want to like I want you to beg for me, whatever, want me, all that stuff. I love it. I love this, but I love the sound of it. It's definitely in that, this is one of those tracks where it's like, okay, this is full velvety concept and all that. But yeah, definitely one of my favorites. I'd say maybe after Feel My Rhythm, maybe second or third favorite track.
And then I echo that. I'm definitely it's a top track for me. I think. I mean, for me, it always hits that note where I want the R&B song. I want the song that really plays into the emotions of kind of attentiveness to music. Not to say that other music doesn't have the same level of attention, but for a song like this, you really have to kind of pay attention to what they're trying to make you feel, because it is slower, it is R&B, and then also how the vocals pair with all of that. Obviously they're amazing vocalists, all 5 of them. We've said that a million times, but it just bears repeating. And again, I think the strength is also the lyrics and how they really push that envelope of, yes, this is K-pop, but at the same time, these are adult women. And it bears repeating is all I gotta say. One last musical note for me is there's an electric guitar sound in the bridge that is absolutely fire. I didn't notice it until I had the headphones on as well, and I just kept going back to it. I was like, what is this? It's like it just sneaks up on you, and it really does a nice job to transition those two sections. Cami, any closing thoughts on Beg for Me?
When you were talking about that, I was really thinking like, I really wish one day they would come out, because they have a lot of these type of, turn down R&B, sexier types B-side tracks, and I was like, man, I really hope one day we get these as like a. I know they don't want to do it because they got to reach like um, a mass audience or whatever with their, but maybe later on in their careers when it's kind of like they can just do whatever they want and they don't really gotta care about sales and all that. But I really hope that one day we get an actual title track that's like this. Because every time there's an album, I'm like, man, I wonder if this track, like, what if So Good, or what if Taste, or what if Look, or one of those tracks was their title track. I wonder what the reception would be and what that concept would look like. So I really hope that in the future we do get like a beg for me, or like even like later on, and we talk about good, bad, ugly, something like that. I really like to see something, but no, we gotta, for the title track, you gotta do something that's poppy and something that sticks and will do great in the charts and all that stuff. But I'm very interested. So hopefully one day we'll get something like this as a straight up title track, which I don't think we've had since maybe like Automatic, or like very early on in their careers, like when they first were like, okay, this is the Velvet side. I hope we get one of those pretty soon.
It was just about to bring up Automatic. Yeah, it's been a minute. Is all I gotta say. Check out that album, by the way. I think, is it an album? I can't remember if it was a single or if it was attached to a Velvet album. But it's that song is amazing. So
I think that's on Ice Cream.
You're right. Yeah, that was yeah, okay.
And they had two versions that kind of had like an ice cream cake, and then like an Automatic version of the album.
Red Velvet just makes me feel a kind of way, man. I'm just like so foggy right now. I can't really focus. All right, let's go on to track number 4 with Bam Baleo. I hope I didn't pronounce that correctly. Via Wikipedia, I think this is what they're going for. The Spanish translation is wobble, sway, or dangle. So it's got a city pop feel. City pop plays into my heart. But it's the song evokes a lot of imagery of being on the night out, being free, letting your mind run free, your body swaying and dancing with another person, alluding to a number of adult activities as well. Again, I'm here for it. I mean, give me all mature Red Velvet. I'm a grown adult. People will grow up eventually, and the kids will have to learn about this stuff at one point in their life, and they do it so well. I'm gonna stop myself before I kind of just like lose my mind. Kami, what are your thoughts musically about how this song, played out for you? But also the fact that "Beg for Me" and "Bambaleo" thematically match so well, and they transition into each other. What are your feelings about both of these songs coming back to back?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love when they do city pop. I know that was a big trend, like maybe 2020. I want to say, even maybe still a little bit last year. They've always done it since like Ladies Night and Look. They've done a few of the city pop sounding tracks. So I love this one. Very much reminiscent of Yukika type joint. Which I think even some of our fans kind of pointed out that it uses one of the same exact sample sounds from what was their latest single? I think Insomnia or something like that. But basically in the chorus, there's a little sample of the city pop like sound, the little ding ding ding. And then it's I think it's almost exact. So they must have used the same exact sample, but the rest of the songs don't really sound very much the same as well. But very very in the same vein of typical, very standard city pop. But whenever Red Velvet does it, it always comes out perfect. So I love it. The highlight for me on this one was definitely the chorus. Just like a very nice city pop chorus. where just kind of everything's swelling, and like you said, it definitely gives that feeling to what the song title is that swaying, kind of like a sensual vibe. Like you said, it's kind of like maybe in terms of how these are staged on the album, maybe beg for me is kind of like the playful flirting ness, like, oh, I want you to want me type thing, and this is kind of where they get together and dance the night away or whatever. um but yeah, I love this song. This is definitely one of my favorites on the track, on the EP as well. So yeah, that's about it.
You're saying everything that speaks to my soul, man. It's just I couldn't have said it better myself. I think just the pairing of these two songs really shows you the direction of where they are in their own lives. I think you nailed it, where it starts off with the playful beginnings of a relationship, and it leads into the imagination of what it means to be in a very passionate situation with someone, a passionate moment, perhaps. And for me, it's all about the vocals, right? I think between the two songs, they do a nice job of blending all the vocals. And to me, it feels like there's a concerted effort of making this really be an album of 5 vocalists in unison, right? I don't ever feel like there's that one memorable or like maybe overly exaggerated Wendy sulky belting moment, and I never feel like there's ever that one just like stop everyone listen to Irene rap moment. I love them all just fine in their previous songs, but again, it's the evolution of where they are as artists, as members of a group, and them harmonizing literally and figuratively in their lives. So yeah, no, just a great collection of 2 songs back to back. And for me, R&B, city pop, one and the same, as far as kind of the elements of my soul that an artist can really tap into, that I will just cling on to and be a loss for words, because I'm just rambling at this point. All right, let's move on to track number 5, Good, Bad, Ugly. A wind down R&B track. I love the keys in the chorus. I kind of just love the way that this is very smooth. What are your thoughts about this song? I know you were alluding to it a little bit earlier, but go into it, Kami. How do you feel like this song plays into the album?
Oh yeah, I think this is definitely my favorite of the B-sides. Um, Usually on every Red Velvet release, I'll gravitate more towards the B-sides rather than the title track. That's just kind of how I usually am. This one, I think, Feel My Rhythm is definitely my favorite track on the album, but this is my favorite B-side on there as well, along with Beg For Me and Bambaleo. But I just love this one, just the vibe of it, like you were saying, very smooth, chill. That's very much my kind of style. Um, it has this really nice kind of brass kind of sample in there, that little dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. um that it reminds me of this hip hop production duo called Brass Tracks. I don't know if you've ever heard, they did kind of production on like early Chance the Rapper and stuff like that back in 2016. And then they kind of did their own stuff where they're very famous for kind of recreating like Drake songs, but all with brass instruments and like a hip hop R&B style. So that sample really kind of reminded me of their kind of production. I even looked, I was like, is this by them or not? But it wasn't. But it's very reminiscent of that. So definitely check out Brass Tracks. I know they came out with the album a few years ago, but I really love that. And then I love the message of the song as well, where it's kind of just saying, it's all about like self love and like, I think the lyric is basically like, you just take the good, the bad, the ugly of life, and it's, life is like a box of chocolates basically. And you never know what you're gonna get, a la Forrest Gump. So I really love that messaging, and then the smoothness that goes on with it. So it's a nice kind of, we get these two very kind of lovey-dovey, you know, um, sensual songs before, and then we get this one. Is like, okay, it's kind of like a reminder, like, okay, no matter what, you always got to make sure you love yourself first. So I love that message, and was definitely one of my favorite B-sides, or it's my favorite B-sides and my favorite B-side overall. One of them definitely for Red Velvet.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, the uncertainty of love and life, I think, is all pulled into this song, right? I think you have the high energy passion of kind of the first four tracks of the song, whether you're exploring a fantasy world, whether you're exploring love, and finding love in another person, or kind of what it means to step back, and accept yourself. And every day I just love myself is kind of the lyric at the end of the song there. I with a song like this, it's how should I say this? It really kind of goes to show the range of Red Velvet in such a unique way, where typically we think of range as things that are on contrasting sides of a spectrum, right? Where you have something that is extremely loud and bombastic, and then something that is perhaps a ballad. For this album, it all does feel fairly similar in kind of the vibe and the tones and the feel, but there are so many different styles within the genre itself that they're playing around with that I think is just kind of masterful. Whether it's the production team that's really just giving them S tier, grade A, whatever stake, A1. What are the grade levels for stakes? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like music quality, but then also just how they are incorporating themselves into the songs. And I think all of that is very much reflected in the behind the scenes that you were talking about earlier. So please check them out if you haven't seen them, because I think that informs the way that I listen to these songs and what I look for as far as how each member is highlighted, and then what part they're expressing in what kind of way. So yeah, Good, Bad, and Ugly. Beautiful song, amazing song. If you love R&B, if you love Red Velvet in their wind down mode, that's the one right there. It's a great track 5 nearing the end of the album. So let's get into track 6. In My Dreams, the end cap of the album. This is definitely a curtain call album, a curtain call song. The show's ending. You do have the bookend, the fairy tale motifs, but it's the end of the night, and we're calling it a night with a really great trap bounce. Cami, how do you feel about this song being the end cap to the Reve Festival 2022?
I think it's a perfect kind of circle back to Feel My Rhythm, where in this one, in Feel My Rhythm, you have that box sample. In this one, you kind of have a more of the lighter tone, the music box kind of little sample in the beginning. It starts off with that, and I think that definitely ties into what the teasers had with the ballerina aspect and all that, and the album concepts. So it's a nice kind of rewriting back or to a tone down, like you said. Like, if Feel My Rhythm in the beginning is this kind of way out there, fantastical fantasy land kind of thing, this is more of the kind of subdued version of that, where it's like, okay, maybe that was a full fantasy world, but this is just kind of like, oh, you open up a little music box and it's kind of like you just let your imagination run wild. So I love that element of it, and like you said, it's kind of more into that too, where it has that little musical box sample, and then it goes into the little bit of a trap beat, which I love. I love that since they've done that since Psycho, so I'll take that anytime. Um, that song is actually kind of I didn't really look into the full translations, but just from like the chorus and all that, it just sounds like a kind of like a story of like unrequited love. Maybe if we're going with this narrative of the kind of uh maybe like the self love before that, and then the sensualness of the two tracks before that with Bambaleo and Beg for Me. Maybe this one is kind of like, oh, okay, well maybe things didn't work out, but there's always that thought of like, in my dreams in this fantasy world we're together and you love me back and all that stuff like that. So I really like that. I really like that it's a kind of a nice, like you said, bookend to the story, which is a very interesting thing too with how this album plays out, because Anita was talking about it, how the visuals for the music video is actually very, I'd say it's easy to say it's based off of like this 1500s painting. I think she was saying it was by like Herodotum Bosch or whatever. I looked it up. It's called Garden of Earthly Delights. So Anita definitely talks about it in, I think, last week's episode when we were talking about the essays and all that. But it's basically, it is like a storybook. It's this oil painting on wood. It's called like a triptych or something like that. And it's basically, it opens up and you have three panels, and then all three panels are represented in Feel My Rhythm. Um, so it definitely has that kind of storybook aspect of it, and then that's exactly how this album plays out, like you were saying. So I just barely put that connection together when you said that. So that's definitely a good insight on your part. But yeah, I love it. I love it as a bookend. It's a nice kind of little turn down for the album, and it's just a nice song.
Hey man, to take all the credit, I just kind of floated the idea out there, and you kind of put it all together for me. I could not have pulled any of the strings and attached them. So excellent part on you. No, for me, it's again like an amazing thematic end to this song. This, I guess, seemingly book of what they're trying to accomplish in this fantasy world. Lyrically, I do love this idea of, like you said, unrequited love, but then the reality of what it means to wake up from this dream and be pulled back into the real world. You know, longing to stay into this space where everything is perfect, everything is idealized, but there is a harsh reality to to face, I suppose. And they don't do it in a way where it's incredibly difficult. It's just one of those self-assured, self-awakening moments, right? I think that plays very much into a lot of the fantasy elements of going into a mystery world, a fantasy world, and then waking up and thinking about whether it was a dream, whether it was real, and then what lessons you can derive from it going into the rest of your life. Because, fantasy stories are amazing because they have a beginning, middle, and end. They do tell a lesson and a story. But when you take them back into your own lives, your life continues on, right? And it's how do you incorporate those lessons, those moments, and create something special as you go throughout the rest of your life. And for me, that is the story of Red Velvet. That is just their continuous perpetuation of pushing different art styles while also being characterized amazingly. And then my connection and attachment to them as people, because I think they all bring so many different things. They are so present in K-pop and Korean entertainment that it does feel like we've lived with them for so long. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about K-pop. They're accessible and they're there with us for a number of reasons, a number of ways, and we can connect with them in addition to the music. So when the art is the highlight and really pushes forward into the experience, it's just a beautiful culmination of everything. So shout out to Red Velvet, all the members, Irene, Silgi, Wendy, Joy, Yeri, all amazing. If you ever want to talk to us, we'll talk to you for hours. And yeah, that's all I can really say. Because yeah, like I said, they're creeping up on like all time for me, right? I think if I really was to pick one, not really surprising, but kind of, ironically, it would be Girls' Generation. But then for right now, it's just, man, there's just so much history with Red Velvet, right? So
we got to get you there. We got to get you there.
Ooh, yeah, no, all good
Hopefully
stuff.
next comeback.
I might be there already, to be honest. I freaking like, I love this album. All right, so moving into closing thoughts. We've had this somewhat trilogy of events for Red Velvet's music. So starting in 2019, we have the Reve Festival, Zimzalabim, Oompa Oompa, Psycho. And then there was a bit of a break for reasons, life reasons. But now we're kind of back on track with Red Velvet proper. What do you see moving forward, going into their next release in October? And do you feel like this is the start of a new trilogy?
Oh, I definitely hope so. I'd say that Queendom was kind of like this, like you said before, almost like an interlude in between 2019, the Reve Festival from there, and we got that just to show like, okay, the whole group's back. They were doing off solo stuff and all these other things and recovery from Wendy's accident and all that stuff. So that was a nice kind of, I love Queendom as well. But yeah, it definitely felt like I think interlude is the best word. And this is kind of like the full, okay, Red Velvet is fully back. I was very interested when I saw that they were using the Reve Festival kind of name for this one and then putting it on like 2022. and I very much thought about why that choice was made. Because especially at the end of 2019 when we got Psycho and all that, they titled it as a finale. So you thought that kind of that trilogy was done. But also the way they did that, I expected them to do one more EP and then collab them all together into a compilation like they did. But rather that they did two EPs with day one and day two, and then the finale. So I thought that was kind of all done. So maybe with what happened during the promotions for Psycho, and then the kind of the year gap, and everyone kind of going off and doing their own projects for a little while. So now we're coming back to it. Maybe it was just kind of like, okay, well, since we didn't get to really have a closure on that finale, you know what I mean? Because of Wendy's accident, we didn't get any promotions or anything like that. Um, so now with this one, they're like, okay, now let's come back, let's do it 2022, pick up where we left off, and continue with that. I think the really nice thing with those Reve festivals is that they had the concept of like an amusement park and like really fun, and Zimzalabim and Umpa Umpa are really fun tracks. But then it goes into Psycho for the last, which is a very interesting choice, which very much leads, I think, into Feel My Rhythm. Because definitely Feel My Rhythm, like we were saying before, is a 2.0 esque of Psycho. So I'm trying to figure out where that places in that with that name, because it's very, it definitely chose that for that, that name for a reason. Which is more like, it's a festival, it's a celebration, it's kind of like a celebration to come back. Unfortunately, with this one, with this comeback, there was also some kind of setbacks with the members getting COVID, and that they still can't promote fully as they would a normal comeback. So, what I'm looking forward to in the next whatever they decide to do, I want to see definitely another trilogy. That'd be dope. Maybe like another summer end of beginning of fall type thing, and then maybe another winter comeback to fully close out the year. They definitely were talking about with this comeback that they're known as the summer queens with their poppy summer anthems. Then they have the kind of fall bad boy um, type R&B comebacks, and then Psycho had that was like their winter comeback. So they definitely wanted to not be shoehorned into one season. So that's why this was kind of like a spring. It's definitely, you see that uh, evoked into the visuals of this one. Definitely like bright green and all that stuff. But I really hope whatever it is, I don't know. I'm ready. At this point, like I said, I trust fully with SM. I think SM and the members have a complete full grasp of what Red Velvet is and what their sound is. And I love that, because whenever we do get experimentation, like with Feel My Rhythm or whatever, it just fully works for Red Velvet. And like Doug was saying in the main show, was that the best thing that they have going for them is that they are Red Velvet. And you see a lot of new groups. They tried out these different concepts and all that stuff. Just they're trying to find something that'll hit. But I think that's the great thing with what we got with Red Velvet is that they know what they're doing. That's what I think I can say. And I'm just whatever comes next, whether it be one more comeback or two more. They did say that there would be more comebacks this year, one of many. I mean, they just had this morning the Japanese album drop, I believe, which I haven't gotten to yet. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think I've taken that approach with Red Velvet these last couple of years, where it's just kind of I don't know what to expect, and I like that. Like kind of like when you go to a movie, and you're like, okay, that looks really good. I'm just gonna watch a trailer once, and I fully trust that it'll be amazing from what I saw. So I don't need to see anything else. I'm ready for the thing to come out. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well said, well put, amazing. Honestly, and Red Velvet has built up that social capital, right? As far as our expectations as fans and people who love them as a group, and also just them being so exposed and just being out there all the time. It's like I musically, I think if you do want to just look at the calendar, they haven't had as much like group activity as you know would expect relative to like their entire career. But you know they're part of our lives in a lot of ways. I mean, Wendy has her own show. Sogi talks to people occasionally on, I forget the name of that show. It's the one that's shot on in portrait, like on a phone.
Yeah, it's like Sogi Zip or something like that.
Yeah, and Joy's always everywhere. Yeri did have that YouTube channel that was popping off for a long time, but she's always around. And Irene, hello, she's just on every advertisement. So, with all that being said, I too am excited for future Red Velvet music. I think the thing that I'm just most excited for, and this is kind of a cop out, is the consistency in which that will happen, right? Because I think it was just always a big question since the Irene Solgi subunit. When was Red Velvet going to come back? You know, we had the Joy single solo project, which was kind of a callback, a throwback to an older song. So it wasn't like an actual Joy song. And then you had Wendy's song, which was kind of a country song, a Korean country song. Amazing. I loved it, but she didn't promote it, right? So it kind of left us wanting them back on stage altogether. And I do feel like that's just the one thing that I can actually say is a pretty big certainty with Red Velvet, is that they will be on stage a lot this year. And that is all I truly want. I'm a very simple person. And as far as musically, thematically, it would make sense if the fall was Halloween, if it was horror, if it was violence. They've already done so much violence to my soul and to my heart. But let's actually see some real violence and more murder. That was in Bad Boy, right? Or was it RBB?
Peekaboo.
Peekaboo
is the Pizza Boy murders.
Yes. Okay. And they did mention it on the show, so that's my bad for forgetting. I just always associate that time of the year with those three songs, right? It's RBB,
right.
Bad Boy, and Peekaboo. But yes, Peekaboo, murder. Let's get some real murder. Let's just go right into it.
I know. I would love something like that. Like, I think that's, you know, this was a little bit more. Feel My Rhythm was like, you know, elegance and you know, nice feelings and all that. But yeah, let's get some like grimy R&B, like dark R&B type joint next time. So hopefully that comes out. October would be a perfect time. Yeah,
just right in that fall, darker season. The sun is down sooner. Just feeling anxious all the time. Yeah, no, I just want it.
And then maybe you know throw in a world tour in there as well. We got to get that soon.
All right, you just exclamation pointed everything with that one. Imagine. Well, I will say, if there's any indicator of Red Velvet perhaps doing a world tour, it's that everyone is doing a world tour now.
Right.
So I mean, Twice is coming back and doing a second round, and I think Wusung and Ij, J Park just announced some dates. So man, it's time. Come on, Red Velvet. We want to see you in the United States. Everyone's dying to get you here, and I think just me selfishly as a fan, I think their music plays so well with just how different it is relative to all the other K-pop. Again, not to say like Twice is so similar to the rest of K-pop, but I feel like Twice is one of those where you can pinpoint like that's pretty K-pop. Where it's Red Velvet, there's just so much, and there's just a large variety of things that you could just dig into. Yeah, and again, this is the reason why it's creeping up on me that Red Velvet may actually just be my favorite girl group. I'm so sorry to all the other girl groups. All right, Kami, amazing, spectacular, incredible conversation on the Reve Festival 2022 Feel My Rhythm album discussion. You're amazing. You rock. Anything you want to plug, sir?
Just my normal stuff. Kmusiceveryday on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I've been trying to do a little bit more with just kind of giving out recommendations, basically. But if anything, just go to kmusiceveryday.com. That has links to everything and all that. So kind of like a central hub. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I got nothing really I'm working on lately. Just trying to do more playlists and all that stuff. So if you guys want playlists and you know, I've been Oh, two things actually. That's what I want. I will. I started on Spotify an hip hop, a Korean hip hop, and a Korean R&B kind of like weekly, not weekly, but new release playlist. So the Korean hip hop one's called Rap Song, and that just has whatever the latest Korean hip hop tracks that come out. And then I recently just made an R&B one, and I made those because they do have Spotify ones, but they're not. They mix in a lot of stuff that I don't agree with is in the like exactly in the genre or the vibe I want. Um, I decided to make those. So if you're looking to keep up to date, I know it's a lot with K-pop and all those. There's an easy way to kind of keep up with Korean hip hop and R&B if you want to check out what's new with those. Um, R&B one is called R&B Soul, and Rap Song on Spotify, and I have links to those on my website as well, Kmusiceveryday.com.
Amazing. Yeah, you're definitely a perfect guide for all things Korean music, whether it's K-pop, K-hip hop, K-R&B, K-indie music even. I definitely go to you for a lot of those recommendations passively through all of your accounts and also the channel on the Soju Talk server. But yeah, man, you do incredible work, and I'm just really happy to have you being the shepherd for a lot of this and a lot of the great music that we listen to.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Soju Sessions on the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and continue the conversation on the Soju Talk K-pop podcast Discord. For K-Music Every Day, I'm Crispy, and this has been the Soju Sessions.